Natalie Brooks stared at her phone screen, watching the family group chat explode with messages about Christmas plans. Her sister Jessica had just posted another ultrasound photo, and their mother Grace was already planning a baby shower. The comments flooded in with heart emojis and congrats. Christmas Eve arrived with a soft, fresh snowfall that blanketed Boston in a pristine layer of white.
What a lovely surprise.
Natalie stood at her
to see you
apartment
both here
window,
together.
her breath
We're so glad
fogging
to
the
be here.
cold
Thank you for having
glass
us.
as she watched for Owen's car. With every passing minute, she second-guessed every single decision that had led her to this exact moment. Over the past 4 days, she and Owen had met twice more, supposedly to coordinate their fake relationship story. But each meeting felt less like a rehearsal and more like a genuine date. They were filled with easy laughter and conversations that stretched on far longer than either of them had planned. Sleek black SUV pulled up to her building, and her breath caught. Owen stepped out, looking impossibly handsome in a navy pea coat, and he was holding a beautifully wrapped gift. Her heart did that inconvenient little skipping thing again as she watched him approach the entrance. Shaking her head, she grabbed her overnight bag and the pile of presents for her family, taking one last deep, steadying breath before heading downstairs to meet her fate. "You look beautiful," Owen said, the moment she emerged from the building. His eyes took in her burgundy sweater dress and winter coat with an admiration that felt all too real. He wasn't just being polite. The sincerity in his voice made her cheeks warm despite the biting cold air. "You clean up pretty well yourself," Natalie replied, trying to sound casual as she let him take her bag. "Ready for this performance? About that?" Owen carefully loaded her things into the back of the SUV. "I've been thinking, we should just be ourselves as much as possible. The best lies are mostly truth, right? We just leave out the part where this whole thing has an expiration date." Natalie slid into the warm passenger seat, surprised by how right his suggestion felt. "When did you become the wise one in this arrangement?" she teased. "I had a good teacher." Owen started the engine and pulled smoothly into the light holiday traffic. "UV taught me more about authentic messaging in 4 days than my entire marketing team has in 6 months. The drive to her parents' house in Hartford would take about 2 hours. They spent the first 30 minutes reviewing their cover story one final time. The official narrative was that they'd been dating for 3 months after meeting at a charity gala for environmental causes. In their made-up history, Owen had spilled champagne on Natalie's dress, and instead of getting angry, she had laughed. He'd been charmed immediately. They bonded over a shared love of old black-and-white movies and their ambitious career goals. It was simple, believable, and just close enough to the truth of their developing friendship. As they merged onto the main highway, the car grew quiet for a moment. "Can I ask you something real?" Owen said, breaking the silence. "Why does your family's opinion matter so much? You're clearly successful and happy on your own. Why let them make you feel like you're incomplete?" Natalie was quiet for a long moment, watching the snow-covered trees blur past the window. "My dad had a heart attack 3 years ago," she finally said, her voice soft. "It was serious. Touch and go for a while. When he recovered, something just shifted in how I saw time. Every holiday feels so precious now, but also heavy. I want them to see me as whole, not as the daughter they need to worry about or fix." Owen reached over and gently squeezed her hand. "For what it's worth," he said, "you seem pretty whole to me. Actually, you might be the most self-assured person I've met in a long time. That's kind of you to say. Even if you're paid to say nice things." Natalie meant it as a light-hearted joke, a way to deflect the sudden intensity, but Owen didn't laugh.
Oh.
"I'm not being paid. You're helping my company because you're brilliant at what you do, and I'm doing this because I want to. The marketing help is just the excuse we both needed to meet." His hand was still holding hers, warm and steady against her skin. Natalie found she had no desire to pull away. "Tell me something true about you," she urged, feeling bold. "Something you haven't told anyone in a while." Owen was silent for so long that she thought he might not answer. Then he spoke, his voice much quieter than before. "I'm scared I'm becoming my father. He built this incredibly successful company, but he lost his marriage and he barely knew his kids. I look at my life, and I see the exact same pattern forming. I work 16-hour days. I've forgotten the last time I called my mom just to talk. My last relationship ended because I was never present, even when I was physically there. Is that why you agreed to this?" Natalie asked gently. "A fake relationship feels safer than a real one?" Maybe at first, Owen admitted, glancing at her with a vulnerable expression she'd never seen before. But talking to you these past few days, I remember what it feels like to want to make time for someone, to actually look forward to seeing them. You make me want to be better at finding that balance. Before Natalie could even begin to process that stunning confession, her phone rang and her mother's smiling face filled the screen. She answered on speaker. "Hi, Mom, darling, you're almost here, right? Your father is pacing. He's so excited to meet Owen. Should we open wine now or wait? And does Owen have any food allergies? I made my famous crown roast, but Jessica said I should have asked first." The Brooks family home was exactly as Natalie had described, a charming colonial with white lights twinkling along the roofline and a festive wreath on every single window. Her father, Tom Brooks, opened the door before they could even knock, his weathered face breaking into a warm, genuine smile. "You must be Owen, Tom Brooks." He extended his hand, his grip testing and firm. He was a retired construction foreman who still carried himself with a physical authority despite being in his 60s. "Sir, it's a pleasure." Owen matched his grip confidently. "Thank you for including me in your Christmas." Grace Brooks appeared behind her husband, elegant in a cream sweater, her silver hair perfectly styled. Come in. You must be freezing." "Natalie, let me see you." She pulled her daughter into a tight hug and turned her appraising eye on Owen. "Well, you've certainly photographed well. But you're even more handsome in person." "Mom," Natalie protested, her cheeks flushing. But Owen just laughed. "Thank you, Mrs. Brooks. Though I have to say, now I know where Natalie gets her beauty from." Grace actually blushed. "Oh, he's a charmer. I like him already, Tom." Just then, Natalie's sister Jessica emerged from the living room, visibly pregnant and glowing. She had their mother's delicate features, but their father's direct gaze. "So this is the mysterious boyfriend we've heard almost nothing about." Natalie's been very secretive. "We wanted to make sure it was serious before introducing everyone," Owen said smoothly, slipping his arm around Natalie's waist in a gesture that felt surprisingly, unnervingly natural. "But when Natalie talks about her family, I knew I wanted to meet the people who shaped her into the incredible woman she is." Dinner was served in the formal dining room, the table groaning under the weight of Grace's crown roast, roasted vegetables, and homemade rolls. The expensive bottle of wine Owen brought earned an approving nod from Tom. The conversation flowed with an ease that shocked Natalie. Owen answered every question about his company with Grace and asked thoughtful questions in return. He listened intently when Jessica talked about her pregnancy concerns. He engaged Tom in a surprisingly deep discussion about sustainable building practices. He complimented Grace's cooking with specific observations that proved he was actually paying attention. Natalie watched him effortlessly charm her entire family, and she felt something fundamental shift deep in her chest. This wasn't an act. Owen was genuinely interested. He remembered the detail about her father's heart attack and asked about his health. He knew Jessica was a teacher and asked about her students. These were all small things Natalie had mentioned casually, and he had retained every single one. But she also noticed her father watching Owen with increasing scrutiny. Tom Brooks hadn't built a successful business from the ground up by missing details. Several times during dinner, Natalie caught her father's eyes narrowing just slightly when Owen spoke, a thoughtful, calculating look on his face. After dinner, Natalie escaped to the kitchen on the pretext of helping with dishes. She was loading the dishwasher when Owen appeared in the doorway, 2 empty wine glasses in his hand. "Your family is wonderful," he said, setting the glasses on the counter. "I can see why you wanted their approval so badly. You're doing amazing," Natalie said, her voice filled with relief. "They absolutely love you. My mom has probably already planned our wedding in her head." Owen moved closer, and suddenly the large, airy kitchen felt very, very small. "Natalie, I need to tell you something. What's wrong?" She turned to face him fully, a knot of concern tightening in her stomach at his serious tone. "Nothing's wrong. That's the problem." Owen set his hands on the counter on either side of her, not quite touching her, but close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. This was supposed to be simple. Help each other out, then walk away. But I can't stop thinking about you. Every time you laugh, every time you tuck your hair behind your ear when you're concentrating, every time you say something brilliantly insightful. This stopped feeling fake 3 days ago. Natalie's breath caught in her throat. She had felt it too. That unmistakable shift from performance to something profoundly real. Owen, we agreed. I know what we agreed. If you want to stick to that, I'll respect it completely. But I needed you to know that when I hold your hand or put my arm around you, I'm not acting. When I look at you, I'm not pretending to feel something I don't. He leaned a little closer, his eyes searching hers for an answer. Tell me I'm alone in this, and I will never mention it again. She couldn't. The truth was written all over her face, in the way her heart was racing against her ribs, in the way she found herself swaying toward him involuntarily. You're not alone, she whispered. Owen's eyes darkened with an emotion that made her knees feel weak. He lifted one hand to her face, his thumb brushing her cheek with a devastating gentleness. Can I kiss you? For real this time, not for show? Yes, Natalie breathed. He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to change her mind. His lips were just about to meet hers when Jessica's voice rang out from the hallway. Natalie, Mom wants to know where the dessert plates are. They sprang apart like teenagers caught by their parents. Owen ran a hand through his hair, a quiet, frustrated laugh escaping his lips. Your sister has impeccable timing. The worst, Natalie agreed, her heart still pounding a frantic rhythm. She pointed to a cabinet above the counter. Dessert plates are up there. We should probably get back before they send a search party. Owen caught her hand before she could leave. This conversation isn't over, I know, she said, squeezing his fingers in return. I'm counting on it. They returned to the living room, where Grace was serving her famous chocolate cake. But as Natalie sat down next to Owen on the couch, she caught her father watching them. He had an expression she couldn't quite read. It wasn't disapproval exactly, but something thoughtful and knowing that made her wonder just how convincing their performance had actually been. Natalie woke to pale winter sunlight filtering through the curtains of her childhood bedroom. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the memories of last night flooded back. The almost kiss with Owen, the way he had looked at her, the weight of his confession that this had become real for him too. She checked her phone and found a text from Owen, who was staying at a nearby hotel. It read, "Good morning. Can't stop thinking about last night. And not just because your mom's chocolate cake was incredible." Before she could respond, there was a soft knock on her door. Natalie, can we talk? It was her father's voice, gentle but serious. She pulled on her robe and opened the door. Tom stood there with 2 cups of coffee, his expression unreadable. Walk with me? They went downstairs and out to the back porch, an enclosed space with windows overlooking the snow-covered garden. Tom handed her a coffee and settled into one of the wicker chairs. Natalie's stomach churned with anxiety. She knew that look. Her father had something important to say. Owen seems like a good man, Tom began, staring out at the snow. Smart, successful, respectful. Your mother is already planning grandchildren. Dad, she started, but he cut her off. But he's not really your boyfriend, is he? Tom said it gently, without accusation. Natalie's heart sank. How did you know? I've been married to your mother for 35 years, he said. I know what love looks like in its early stages, and I know what people look like when they're trying very hard to appear in love. He smiled at her shocked expression. You two are actually quite good, but there were small things. The way you both hesitated just a fraction before touching each other, like you were remembering you were supposed to. How you kept checking with each other before answering questions, making sure your stories aligned. Are you angry? Natalie asked quietly, shame washing over her. Angry? No, sweetheart? Worried? Maybe a little. Tom took a sip of his coffee. Why did you feel you needed to do this? Tears filled Natalie's eyes. Because I'm tired, Dad. Tired of every holiday being about what I don't have, instead of what I do? Tired of being treated like I'm incomplete? I love my life. I love my job, my apartment, my independence. But none of that seems to count, because I don't have a man to validate it. Tom was quiet for a long moment. Your mother and I have failed you then? That was never our intention. I know that, she whispered. You both mean well, but it doesn't change how it feels. Let me tell you something I've never told you before. Tom set down his coffee and turned to face her fully. When I met your mother, I was engaged to someone else. A woman my parents approved of, from a good family, with all the right credentials. But I wasn't happy. I was doing what everyone expected, not what my heart wanted. Natalie stared at him. I never knew that. Your grandmother would have been furious if she knew I told you. But here's the truth. I broke off that engagement 3 weeks before the wedding because I met your mother at a hardware store. She was trying to fix her own kitchen sink and had no idea what she was doing. I helped her, and we talked for 2 hours in the plumbing aisle. 2 hours, Natalie? And I knew. Knew what? She asked. That real connection doesn't follow anyone's timeline or meet anyone's expectations except your own. My parents were horrified when I canceled my wedding. They said I was throwing away a good match for infatuation. But I married your mother 6 months later, and it's been the best decision of my life. Tom reached over and took her hand. I never wanted you to feel pressure to find someone. I wanted you to find the right someone, whenever that happened. If your mother and I made you feel otherwise, I'm truly sorry. Natalie wiped her eyes. You're not going to tell Mom about Owen and me? Tom smiled. That depends. Is what I saw last night real or not? What do you mean? The way Owen looked at you when you weren't watching. The way you unconsciously moved closer to him every time he spoke. The way you both forgot to act like a couple because you were too busy actually enjoying each other's company. Tom squeezed her hand. That all looked pretty real to me. By the time Owen arrived at 10, the house smelled of cinnamon rolls and coffee. Grace had gone all out with Christmas breakfast, and the living room tree was surrounded by carefully wrapped presents. Owen had changed into dark jeans and a hunter green sweater that made his eyes look almost golden in the morning light. He caught Natalie's eye across the room and smiled in a way that made her forget about everything else. Whatever happened today, she knew they needed to talk about what was actually happening between them. Grace insisted on her traditional Christmas morning routine. Breakfast first, then everyone got one present to open before church. Natalie wasn't surprised when her mother handed Owen a gift, a cashmere scarf in charcoal gray. Mrs. Brooks, you didn't have to, Owen protested, but Grace waved him off. You're practically family now, she said, beaming. Owen's gift to the family was a generous donation to Tom's favorite charity for heart disease research, which made her father's eyes suspiciously bright. But then he pulled out a smaller wrapped box and handed it to Natalie. I saw this and thought of you, he said simply. Inside was a beautiful leather journal with her initials embossed on the cover, and tucked inside the first page was a gift certificate to a week-long writing retreat in Vermont. Natalie stared at it, her throat tightening. You mentioned you were writing a novel, but never had time to focus on it, Owen said softly. I thought maybe this could help. Owen, this is too much, Natalie whispered. But she was clutching the journal like it was precious. It was precious. He had listened to an offhand comment she'd made and turned it into something meaningful. It's not too much if it matters to you, Owen replied, his eyes locked on hers. Jessica watched them with growing interest. You two are adorable. Seriously, the way you look at each other, after church and a late lunch. Grace suggested they play her favorite Christmas game, Truth or Truth. It was a family tradition where everyone drew questions from a bowl and had to answer honestly. Usually it led to funny stories and gentle teasing. But this year, the questions felt loaded with significance. Jessica pulled the first question and read it aloud. What's the moment you knew your relationship was serious? She smiled at her husband. Mark. When he drove 4 hours in a snowstorm to bring me soup when I had the flu. Then it was Natalie's turn. She unfolded the paper. What's your partner's biggest fear? She looked at Owen, remembering their conversation in the car. Becoming so focused on success that he loses the people who matter most. Letting work consume him until he wakes up one day and realizes he's alone. Owen's expression was stunned. That's exactly right. Tom drew next. What do you love most about your partner? Her strength, Tom said, looking at Grace. She makes everything better just by being herself. Then Owen drew a question, and Natalie watched his face change as he read it. What is something you've never told your partner, but wish you had the courage to say? The room fell silent. Owen looked directly at Natalie, and in his eyes, she saw the decision being made. He was done pretending. That this started as something fake, but it became real so fast, I didn't know how to tell her, Owen said, his voice steady despite the bomb he was dropping. Met every moment with her makes me want to be better. That I am terrified she'll walk away when this is over, because I've never felt this way about anyone. I don't know how to let her go. Grace gasped softly. Jessica's mouth fell open. Tom just smiled into his coffee. Natalie's heart was pounding so hard she could barely breathe.
Owen,
"I'm sorry," he said, standing up. "I know this wasn't part of the plan, but I couldn't keep pretending this is temporary when every part of me wants it to be permanent." Natalie stood up too, her hands shaking. "You want to know what I wish I had the courage to say? I've been falling for you since that first coffee shop conversation. That this arrangement was just an excuse to spend time with you. That the scariest part isn't that this is fake. It's realizing how much I want it to be real." Owen closed the distance between them in 3 strides. This time, there was no interruption when he cupped her face and kissed her. It was gentle and fierce all at once, full of promise and possibility. Natalie kissed him back, pouring everything she felt into it, not caring that her entire family was watching. When they finally broke apart, Grace was crying happy tears. Jessica was grinning. Tom was nodding like this was exactly what he'd expected. So Tom said mildly, "Should we still pretend we didn't know this was arranged? Or are we done with that fiction?" Natalie laughed, her forehead still pressed against Owen's. "You told them?" Grace said, standing to hug them both. "We figured it out yesterday. But we also saw what you two clearly couldn't see yet. That somewhere between the fake arrangement and Christmas dinner, you both fell in love." Later that evening, as snow began to fall again, Natalie and Owen stood on the back porch wrapped in blankets, watching the flakes drift down in the darkness. "So what happens now?" Natalie asked, leaning into his warmth. "We were supposed to end this arrangement after today. I think we should start over," Owen said, turning to face her. "Hi, I'm Owen Carter. I'm a workaholic CEO who's learning that success means nothing without someone to share it with. I met this incredible woman at a coffee shop, and I'd really like to take her on a real date. No fake relationship, no business arrangement. It's just 2 people getting to know each other honestly." Natalie smiled, her heart full. "Hi, Owen. I'm Natalie Brooks, and I'd love to go on a real date with you. New Year's Eve," he suggested. "We can start the new year the right way. Together, but for real this time." "Perfect," Natalie agreed, then kissed him again under the falling snow. Inside, through the warm glow of the windows, they could see her family laughing and celebrating. Tom caught Natalie's eye and raised his coffee mug in a silent toast. She waved back, grateful for parents who loved her enough to let her find her own way, even when that way was unconventional. She had brought a fake boyfriend to Christmas, but she was leaving with something far more valuable. A real connection. A genuine partner. And the beginning of a love story that was entirely her own. Sometimes the best gifts were the ones you never expected to find. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.